we've been on a 30-year journey, you know, like everyone else in the world. In Australia, we started from grassroots communities who were experiencing all of this. We found the answers amongst our communities, in particular around condoms and around sharing needles and around clean needles and around sex worker education. We found those answers ourselves. We told them to government. In Australia, we were fortunate in that government, both sides of government, listened to us. They listened to us and they engaged with us and they made the changes to make those things work.
I guess it's surprising that 30 years on, some of those key messages from the beginning are still so, they still resonate so much today.
Well, the stigma and discrimination, it's still there. Like, we realize that it's need a long walk to reduce the stigma and discrimination.
We know that we have amazing scientific advances, and that, of course, when I was diagnosed 25 years ago, I was told I was going to be dead in 5 to 8 years. We know that people can live long and healthy lives now, but the greatest barrier that we still haven't properly tackled is the stigma around HIV.
Australia did a really good job at halting the spread for a really long time, but now we're at a point where infections are increasing again. Sexual health education is still denied to young people. Sexual health education is still a taboo in many schools, and we don't have the political will to implement that at a higher level.
When the first HIV case was diagnosed in Zimbabwe, to where we are now is tremendous. The prevalence rate has come down precipitously, but of course still quite high. And now it's half to what it was in 1999, so we're quite pleased with that.
Our clinicians were some of the first clinicians again to listen to us and take notice when we said, actually, these side effects are so bad, some of us would rather die than have these side effects. So you have to listen to us, and so the doctors listened. They made the pharmaceutical companies listen to re-engineer, to rethink about about all of that. And so that by the early 2000s in Australia, the drugs we were taking, really started to be easier to take, easier to tolerate, and from then, the uptake was really significant.
I think one of the real issues is that women living with HIV find it very hard to get a voice, and we have a lot of women here at this conference speaking, but that's unusual, women living with HIV. So we need to get the scientists to listen to the women living with HIV, for us to say why their science failed us. Some of us are very intelligent women, we're educated, but we still contracted HIV. So my feeling is, unless we manage to tackle the stigma and discrimination, no matter where, even if we have the cure tomorrow, it's not going to solve HIV. So we need to get people living with HIV involved at the point of diagnosis. For example, pregnant women, when they're diagnosed in this day and age, they're turning their backs on the healthcare setting because they're too afraid to, they won't take their drugs because they're too afraid that people will realize they've got HIV.
Right now, like in Indonesia, if you stand on the street and then you read some paper and then it's like HIV and AIDS information, people will like, oh, he's reading something about HIV. He must be have a background like maybe sex worker or drug user, and people like you get the information. People discriminate you. People give you stigma. So this is a problem, and that is totally wrong. So we should educate more people in broader community.
And in my experience of being diagnosed 21 years ago, I was basically told I had 8 years to live, that it was a death sentence still, and I lived my life as though I was going to die. Told not to have children, to forget it, because the chance of passing on the virus was too high. And I found myself in a very kind of depressed state, like almost post-traumatic stress disorder. So it was not, and I look back from then until now, after being on medication for the last 14 years and having 2 healthy children and living a full healthy life, I see that life isn't, for me, is it living with HIV has not actually been a bad thing. And I don't look at the fear and the discrimination that I've been through in the past. So there's another thing that's changed a lot from 20 years ago, is that 20 years ago the fear and the discrimination was so big in my community that I was ostracised and completely pushed away. And now it's like the things that I do within the movement of HIV has brought people towards me, so they're not, instead of going away from me. So I see it as like the strengths of people living with HIV actually is helping this epidemic, because we all have inner strength, we all have ways that we can bring people into understanding what it's like to live with HIV. So I can see a real difference from 20 years ago.
My hope is that, as you know, what was happening now was that the focus on HIV seemingly was dropping. And I hope this momentum can be regathered here and we refocus on areas that can stamp out HIV. And I think that's what we should be doing now, together.